Okay. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 1st of December. We are in the last month of 2021. Wow, a lot has happened. So I'm Heidi Ferguson, and next to me is Fidesta Ramsey, and this is Cocktails and Pajamas, episode 54. Welcome. Um, so before we started recording and going live tonight, we were reminiscing a little bit about last week's episode, which we did the day before Thanksgiving. And we talked about ways that people can maybe find support going into the holidays because, Thanksgiving through Hanukkah, through Kwanzaa, through Christmas, plus whatever other holidays one might celebrate, right? We're all faced with situations that might be great and also might not be so great. And so what we did was we talked a lot about ways to navigate situations and I would think even more importantly are ways to take care of ourselves in those situations. Um, because, as we are celebrating the holidays going forth, especially into this last month of the year, into the new year, we are going to be coming across situations that aren't of the norm. Because we're celebrating with family and friends and maybe eating a little bit more, maybe drinking a little bit more alcohol than we're used to. And so a lot of things can arise. And so, and that might be kind of like a thread theme through the month as you do the podcast. We could, maybe continue to offer a few tips, but we don't want to repeat ourselves. So if you're looking for some support, find us on YouTube, Cocktails and Pajamas, and that would have been episode 53. So yes, so welcome everyone. Are you ready to start? Do you want to
Yeah,
check in
ready to
first?
roll. Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah.
Second, well, just with that, keeping in that theme in mind, as 53 had, like being okay with gifting yourself some grace if you feel socially awkward. Just want to throw that out there because as I have sort of re entered life, amidst things, I'm noticing like some of my gears are a little rusty socially. Not with everyone, but there are some things that's like I haven't really had to, I don't know, talk to, I don't know, whoever in a while. There's a bit of reunion, being mindful that some of this is reunion and might feel different
Right.
coming back into the world. Um, yeah, which I guess it could be part of my check in. I went home to visit my mom for Thanksgiving, and part of that was being around people, right? Like the airport, security, uh, merchants, and on a plane. And it was like, whoa, I'm unused to people at a certain level. And certainly not relationally, because I've continued to coach and connect with friends on Zoom, but that kind of mass, right? What I need for my nervous system. Like I have noise canceling headphones that can have, Andrea Bocelli
Mhm.
soothing me while I'm around that kind of like airport noise and all that stuff. So yeah, just feeling appreciative that I know how to do that, that I know what I need in those situations. And it still felt a little surreal and awkward, you know, the TVs in the airports and children running around and all the things. And it was like, whoa, life, cool. And like, hang on, this feels like a movie. It doesn't quite feel solid yet for me.
Mhm.
It's getting there. And I got to have some really deep, meaningful connection with my mom. Um, having spent not that much time with her on our own and having a week to ourselves that way. Really, I shared with you on I think Monday when we were just catching up, like really being moved and touched to be like, well, we've both done work to be able to go deep like this or to connect like this. Um, yeah, it's sweet in that place. And it's like, oh, and sometimes it takes a long time to build capacity. And that can feel a little bittersweet to me. Um, yeah, this week I'm doing live couples coaching at Accepted and Connected, which is something through the relationship school. And I freaking love, for me as a musician, that improv energy of like it's a live production, right? It's like a play, not literally, but it's we're not going to do this 10 times. Like we're doing this live and in real time. Like this. I actually really get something from that. Um and have ever since like my first acting class, I think in like ninth grade, you know, of wow, we get to play and imagine and do all this stuff. Um, so I get excited not just from the content, which I can geek out on a Saturday morning with, like stuff I love learning about, and then getting to kind of ride an edge stretch for me of coaching live, coaching people I don't know, and doing a 20-minute laser coaching session with the only prayer being, may I help them, may I serve them, even if they just got like 1% further from wherever they were when they started, and hopefully more. So that's just, I'm watching, like, even when I talk about it, I have to remember to breathe 'cause I get really excited and then I'm like, you're not breathing.
Yeah.
It feels good to laugh. And just looking at how beautifully my life has changed in some ways,
Mm.
both because I've learned this stuff, but also because I chose to have this be a calling
Mhm.
moving forward. I got like two for one. Is that the right term?
Something like that.
In terms of both finding a career and a path and a purpose, along with like life changing information.
Mhm.
So that feels really good.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah. And continuing to build a foundation with my partner, which also means scrapping some like funky foundational pieces that weren't working. And I think of this card from a deck that is called Regeneration from Colette Baron Reed. I'll send it to you so you can see what it looks like. But regeneration wasn't just like all pretty and showery and unicorned. There's like a tree growing with like bare roots, and there's like lava, and there's like a butterfly and some flowers, but there's also just like this, what is this molten, you know, destruction happening at the same time. And so, because I've had a history of like relationship anxiety, I have to remind myself this sometimes looks like a death spiral because it is. Like we're letting certain ways of being die that aren't working. And it is like a letting go of a resentment or letting go of like, yeah, every time I do that, we end up in conflict. It's working against us when I do that.
Mhm.
We're looking at it as a team.
Good.
Um, and it's ugly. Make no mistake, you know, it's exciting because we're at that place where we're like, what does secure, healthy partnership look like? And can we live our vows before we make our vows?
Oof.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what the fuck then?
Right. Exactly.
Right? Can we be deliberate that we know and have capacity versus just saying the words and what, not having the like
Yeah.
the spine behind that?
Right.
So that's me in a nutshell at this moment. How are you? And is there anything in what I said that you like resonate with or just had a spark from or anything?
Well, there's several things that you just shared that I really resonated with. And I really, I've mentioned a million times in the last several months that Janice and have really very carefully and in a very intense, deep way have been studying the four agreements and now the fifth agreement. And so when you talk about these vows, like the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. And so when I think about vows or commitment to saying I'm going to make a commitment to something, I'm only going to say those words if I can actually commit to it. So you're saying, we're going to show up and actually be active in the vows and not just say the words. And it's going to be really hard, and it's going to look like a volcano exploded, and then there's going to be, and then there's going to be a huge storm, and then the sun's going to come out and a rainbow will appear. Like, it's all of it, and the in between. So pardon me, I think there's just so much to that. And I have an appreciation and a real deep respect for couples who really decide to be in it, because it's not easy. It's just not easy. And really, hats off, kudos, however you want to say that. I'm Yeah, I'm all supportive to anyone who's like, yeah, I'm really in this, and it's fucking hard and it hurts, and yesterday was great and today is really ugly, and I did this thing and I have shame. Like, it's every emotion, right? Um, yeah. So on that note, yeah, on that note, how am I? Wow, talk about this kind of like season of change and whatnot. I shared with you yesterday that I'm on this cusp, this precipice, this edge of growth, and and I realized, like, even though I was like, oh my gosh, is this going to be hard? Of course, it's going to be hard. Like, there are going to be days, there are going to be days when it's really hard and it's going to look really ugly, and then there are days when I'm going to be like, ho hum, life is good, like it's going to be really simple and all that. And I had a moment today. I had many moments today when I thought about it, and I was just like, oh. And I actually stopped and I asked myself, when I was conscious of thinking about this growth that I'm having, I was like, how am I feeling in this moment? Like, the consciousness and the awareness of asking myself, how do I actually feel in this moment? I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty good right now, you know? Um, because it doesn't have to be all terrible. And it's not. Growth, like everything else, has its ups and downs, has its forwards and backwards, and all the things, and also really important moments of solitude and consciousness. So with that, I would say, in the moment, if I were to ask myself in this moment, how am I doing? Doing good. Like, I feel like, on a scale of 0 to 10, 5 would be status quo. I'm at probably like between a 6.5 and a 7.5. Um, and I'm okay with that. Like I feel good about that. Yeah. And yeah. So that's where I am. And I'm really enjoying the green because I don't know if you know, green is my favorite color. Glad that I have green hazel eyes. I love the color of my eyes, but I'm also like green is one of my favorite colors to wear. And then I'm noticing all this green, even with the fall, the red and the orange and the yellow in the background with the rocks and the water and the reflection. God, I love this season so much. I really love it. Even though the darkness comes, I'm like, when I see this kind of thing, I love it. And then winter holiday in Paris, dear, 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 that's the bomb, right?
Yeah, and isn't it interesting, like, what we crave, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're craving that sort of autumnal, kind of leaning towards the snow cherries in France kind of idea, and we get to bring that with us. Like, I'm hearing it sometimes as, like, it's a little bit of my relaying where I'm at
Mhm.
through the backdrop.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a small little fun thing, but it's there. And I have to say, because my twinkle lights are behind me, I'm loving that I have disco hair
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
right here. I'm kind of wondering how I could have disco hair in real life now.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's as deep as my thoughts go, where it's like, wow, where can I get a little thing that's just like a little disco line
I
of
love
hair?
that. Yeah.
And what I was really thinking about mostly when you were sharing was this really cool self-aware ability to track yourself.
Mm.
I think that's an important skill. And it might be Wednesday to you, like that's how you normally track yourself. But I want to lift it up for our audience. Like, do you stop in the middle of your day? Just check in with yourself. I know things are crazy. I know it's been one hell of what is it, 18 months? For some, like one hell of a life, right? Like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot to endure. So do you stop just like once to go, "Oh, how am I doing? What do I need? Is there like one thing I could do for myself right now just to like make things a little sparklier?" And yeah, tracking. When you said, "Oh, I can actually stop and think and check in with myself," I don't know that everyone is practiced there.
Right.
And it's a cool thing to say, hey, it's possible to be able to befriend yourself and check in like that.
Yeah. And I think for me, I will say that's certainly part of my growth.
Mm,
It's part of my, personal growth, my spiritual growth, my emotional growth. Because I can't really say that this is something that I was doing on the regular even 3 or 4 years ago.
mhm,
Um, what is helpful though is when I'm aware that, oh, I'm sensing some change. So to have the awareness that I'm sensing change is even is a big deal. So
mm,
to have the awareness that there's change happening, and I don't ask a lot of questions. I'm just like, okay, because it's gonna come regardless of how it shows up or when it shows up or why. It's gonna happen. And
mhm,
and I have zero control over it. And that's something else that I've had to learn to let go of. Like I'm I'm just I'm sitting in the side seat. You're at the helm. You're in the motorcycle and I'm in the little sidecar. Just like, hey, here I am. I'm showing up because that's what I'm supposed to do for my life. Um, and
mm,
I'm so grateful that I've done the work that I've done because without it, I don't know. I don't know who I'd be. I don't know where I'd be. Um, so yeah, if thank you for encouraging people. So if if you are, even if you're not even aware you're going through a change in life, that doesn't even, let's just put that aside for a moment. But if you can just ask yourself, stop once a day for 30 seconds
mhm,
and really get quiet and be conscious and ask yourself, how am I doing in this moment? I mean, that it just, and be honest with your answer. And it might take a few moments for you to get really clear about, like, how am I doing in this moment? Yeah, it will come to you,
Mhm.
but listen for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this dovetails perfectly into like this continued conversation of how to have your own back during the holidays, right? There's being able to track yourself. Oh boy, I had too much to eat. Is it time for me to leave the living room,
Yeah.
conversation and go just take a break? Uh, but I remember reading, I think it was the Motivation Manifesto from Brendan Burchard. And he's a high performance habits coach, and not like productivity, but like how to be an optimal functioning,
Mhm.
right? With your purpose and everything. And I found it really interesting. In one of his chapters, he said, like, this thing of like once a day, stop when maybe you're in line at the bank or wherever and just say, what do you need? Like, what do you need? What do I need right now? Because sometimes I could go through the day just delivering for others. And I kept asking it, and it seemed like such a small thing,
Mhm.
as in, well, this isn't changing my whole life, is it? When I first started, right? I couldn't see, short of like, I've got to do this thing I've put into my reminders to do. And then it took a life of its own. Like it kind of started to change how I thought about my needs. And then also watching myself give those needs every day. Oh, you need a nap. Okay, let's take a nap. And what got created was like a friendship with myself,
Oh.
so that I'm not, because I think I will say for me, I started in Holly Weird on sets, which are 16, 18-hour days. I switched to like political campaigns, which are 20-hour days. Switched to nonprofits, which is, working three people's jobs. And so I have capacity to go, 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 but that's not always best for me.
Yeah.
So I actually have to watch for it because it's almost an Achilles. Like I can do it so well, and then I can hit a brick wall. Um, so that comes into like now having sustainable activism, right? Not being up 28 hours trying to be an activist, but being a little more normal about it, for like, I'm doing the long haul,
Mhm.
right? The long game. Um, and blessings to those who can do the sprints, right? We need
Right.
those people too. We need
Right.
the people who are on it immediately and around the clock. But knowing, right? Yeah, I think I just wanted to highlight that
Mhm.
at first sometimes a habit doesn't look like it's moving the needle at all.
Right.
Kind of seems silly and like minor.
Mhm.
And somewhere it takes shape
Mhm.
into something that's really like life altering.
Mhm.
Because now I check in with myself multiple times a day and I have far less hangry and angry and late
Mhm.
and dehydrated and what you call better me in service.
Sure. Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really relating to that habit thing. Um, I I mean, I've worked with many people over the years in the spiritual coaching that I do, and one of the things that I would say many people don't think of it as spiritual work, but creating a healthy habit for yourself is, and it can be, and it actually is spiritual because you're nourishing yourself.
Mm.
And if it's something as simple as taking, like, being realistic about a goal, being realistic about a habit. So if someone said to me, I want to work on having quiet time 3 times a week. Great.
Mhm.
And then I will share my wisdom with them as far as how I would go about it. And then they share their wisdom, and then we kind of you know, come to an agreement what works. Um, and then being accountable, like being accountable maybe to someone else, an external party, until the habit kind of, I want to say, grips onto itself, like until the habit becomes a habit. And then, like, once it's a habit, you can then be accountable to yourself.
Mm.
Um, but I would say if you are working on creating a habit that, healthy, hopefully a healthy habit, um, consider reaching out for support.
Yeah.
Because I think this time of year, a lot of people reflect in the last month of the year, which is December, which is now, before we move into a new year. And, some people might want to call it resolutions. I don't really do resolutions. I don't care for resolutions, but whatever. We have our own language. Um, but as we reflect on the things that we that worked for us and then didn't work for us in 2021, maybe take some time to think about what it is that I want to bring new, or bring with me, that worked in 21 into 2022, and then maybe some new things. And then get some support around that, because you
Mhm.
can actually build a community. I mean, that would be a really cool thing, to have a community of support, of people who are, even though your intentions might not be the same, like your goals might not be the same, but the intention to do it, to create good and healthy habits, oh my god, that's like a revolution. Like, it's almost like you're starting a revolution.
It
Yeah,
is, and I love that whole, like, the revolution being quiet and internal in some ways,
yeah.
right? Because we have power there too. And the piece that I was really getting excited about when you were sharing was this whole, like, if we begin to life vision and then have people who believe our vision with us. And I loved you said, I share my wisdom in the service to helping someone else. Maybe like you've crossed that bridge and at least you can be like, I've got a light, I got a torch, I can walk this bridge with you.
Hmm.
That's what I think of coaching. In my experiences, I've traveled that. Like, let me help shorten your journey,
Hmm.
right? And still help you learn what you need to learn. Um, if we all share our wisdom in that way, and then feel, because accountability and community just feels yummy. Accountability on its own sounds sucky,
it
doesn't it?
and and from personal experience, it really doesn't work.
To be self accountable
To
all the
be
time. And
self-accountable, like, from the get-go,
mm-mm,
it's hard.
no.
It's
But
really
when you
hard.
say accountability and community, it's like, oh, that sounds easier,
Yeah.
right? To me. And something I learned, which I didn't know until I did, it was like a compass exercise through the the course I had taken, a psychology course, where you build out your compass. Like, you build out the things that you, not the things you say are important, but how you live your days,
Mm.
right? And what I noticed, this was 2 years ago, is I always say health is a priority. But when I looked at how I spend my money, my hours, my time, my energy, these were the questions of this quiz for the compass. It was clear that my health was important, but it was like number 7 or 8 on my compass. So it was so low, is the correlation I'm trying to make. It was so low on my priorities for real that I wasn't intrinsically motivated yet. And what I had to do is tether it to other things that were higher priorities, like my purpose, my
Mhm.
mission. Oh, I want to have a healthy lifespan for my purpose, for my mission.
Mhm.
I want to serve as many people as I can reach in this life. And I want to have, my cognition and my physical abilities to do that. Right. I had to tether like a low priority thing to a high priority thing
Sure.
to get any steam behind it
Mhm.
personally, right? And then it's like once I'm doing my purpose and mission, my relationships are better because I'm happier. And like you just start to look at how it maps out. And all of a sudden, health isn't just about getting into a certain size, it's about the vehicle that lets you do all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm like, wow, that deserves reverence,
Yeah.
right? And from that place, I got on top of my health.
Mm.
From I should have reverence for this amazing temple that's doing like a trillion things a day that I don't even like know about.
Yeah.
And I have such a passion and purpose in my life that I want this to be like taken care of like a temple.
Mm. Yeah.
But it wasn't doing it when I was like, oh man, I wish I could fit in the bikini by summer. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I was, if I may, I wanted to piggyback on that a little bit when you said, health is more than about the size. And I don't even know that health is about a size, right? Like it does, I'm going, when I think of health, I think of a healthy heart. I think of healthy blood. I
mm,
think of my liver working properly. I think of my lungs working properly, not having, combating allergies or a cold and these are just, I'm going to call them simple things, but really we have like in order for us to keep our bodies running at optimum level, we have to make ourselves a priority. And it's not about getting into a bikini. It's not about being a size 8 or whatever. It's simply that we love ourselves enough. Thank you for the heart. We love ourselves enough to make ourselves the number one priority. And I
mhm,
often feel sad, when I work with people and they're listing the things that are important to them in their life, and either they're not on the list or they're somewhere near the bottom.
mm,
And all these other things are at the top. Like, and typically it's like I look the first three and I'm like, so how are you going to maintain the first three if you're not on the list? And I can't tell you the number of times, and it really gets me emotional, but the number of times when I've heard, especially women, say, I never I didn't really think about myself.
mm, mm,
And I'm like, I mean, it literally I almost feel as if someone has kicked me in the gut and my breath has been taken out of me. Because again, and I will credit to the work I've done only because I've done the work. Do I have the wherewithal? Do I have the foresight to know that if I'm not here for me, I can't be here for anything else.
mhm,
So if we as women, and I'm talking about women who across the board, who whatever situation you're in, if you're a mother, if you are working full time, doing whatever it is, whatever situation is, if you don't make yourself a priority, literally everything else in your life will fall apart. It just will. And it may not happen overnight, and it probably won't happen overnight, but it will eventually. In one way, shape, or form, it will fall apart. And chances are you're going to notice it in your health first.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and maybe don't wait for the cosmic 2 by 4, you know?
exactly. Right.
I mean, because you could do without the suffering part, like, that part's optional.
It's all
And I
it's all-
love that you say this because I think of I had done training with Tara Marino, it's where I get the Frenchie from, right? The Frenchie Friday, because she had said to me one day, and I was running myself ragged, like, okay, you've got this New Yorker energy, right? It's the productive, get things done, strategic human. And I have that hustle muscle built, like as I said, because of the jobs I did. Um, and she said, which archetype do you think helps your New York? Like when you need more New Yorker, which one do you need? And I was like, well, more New Yorker. And she's like, no, more Frenchy. And
Mm,
I'm so blessed that I was probably 29 or 30 when I heard that.
mhm.
That in order to replenish that New Yorker, that really productive young masculine energy, you need to go so yummy into your feminine and be your Frenchie and really enjoy restoring yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember a friend saying, probably in the last year, like this whole giving from your cup thing is misleading because it should really be give from your saucer, like give from the overflow.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
there's a martyr energy. And we're speaking a little bit more specifically about women. I'm sure men may find themselves here too. It's the archetype of like the burnt toast mom,
yep. Yes.
right? And Tara Marino, I'm crediting her because she had said this of like, okay, you know, mom's making breakfast for everybody and she's making toast and blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, like two pieces get super burnt. And instead of throwing them out because there's still more toast in the bag she could use, she decides to scrape those. And like, what is that modeling? And then two, what is that saying to your inner observer? Like that you only get the burnt toast, or you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think of that archetype of like, don't push so hard that you've taken yourself out of the equation.
Right.
Maybe that's where the sadness, when you were naming that, I was feeling it too. And it's like when people take themselves out of the equation of their own life,
Right.
that is painful to watch
Yeah.
because I don't think it's sustainable.
It's not. It's not sustainable. And I'm noticing how things are kind of coming back full circle when we were initially talking about the holidays and the pressures we put upon ourselves
Mhm.
to do the baking, do the cooking, do the buying of gifts, doing the decoration, all of the commercial things, right? And we're doing these things for whom, right? What are we doing for ourselves? Are we doing these extraneous things for us? Or are we doing them for other people? And if we're doing them for other people, okay, but where are we? Again, where are we on the list of priorities? Like if we're if we don't decorate the tree tonight, is someone gonna die? Probably not, you know? Um, and I mean, fully admitted, recovering perfectionist, recovering, type A, recovering controller, like all of it. I'm like, I have literally had moments where I've had to say to myself, is someone gonna die in the situation, Heidi? No. Okay, then let that shit go.
Yeah.
Because it's not
And
serving anyone.
what I'm hearing is you actually saying, like, let the attachment to it happening right now go,
Yes, yes,
which
exactly.
is cool, right? Because it's like it's only the attachment that's the problem.
That's right.
Mhm,
That's right. Yeah.
mhm. Mm, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, and it's reminding me of things like little snafus in my weeks. Like say, let's say November, a few snafus, and having this moment where like, oh, my partner go, oh, I'm sorry that happened, or oh, that's a bummer, and I'm like, it's only a bummer because I had an expectation that it would go a certain way. But it's not really a bummer because whatever it is generally figure outable. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just noticing that it's my attachment for me that will like have me self agitate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm trying to do less self agitating.
How's it going?
It's a new muscle.
Okay. So can I ask what your self agitation looks like or feels like?
Yeah. Uh, it looks like wanting things my way.
Okay. Okay.
So it looks like, honey making a protein shake, stirring something in like maple syrup in with a spoon, putting the spoon on the counter, like a foot and a half away from the sink, and me being
Okay.
like, WTF? Like, and being like, but really, like you said, is anyone going to die if this sits here for 3 minutes?
Right.
And is this where you want to be putting your energy right now? Right. And let's say if there's 18 of those in a day, it's like an energy leak. So to me, it's sort of like seeing it, being like, well, that's not how you would do it. And
Mhm.
my mom has this, I'm surprised I don't have it tattooed on me where it's like, well, finished done. Not everybody's like you.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm still learning that in people ghosting or in people being certain ways. It's like, well, yeah, you say you wouldn't do it that way, but are you even like wondering why maybe somebody else would? So it's being a little less self-absorbed. I think
Mhm. Mhm.
self-importance creates like self-agitation.
Yeah.
That's my working theory right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
It's Gay Hendricks talked about it in The Big Leap as kind of an upper limiting issue,
Mhm.
right? Leaking out your energy and weird things that then kind of cause an energy limit.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I can relate. I can totally relate. And not that this is an excuse.
Right.
What I'm gonna say though is that, I have lived alone longer than I've ever been in a relationship or lived with anyone. And so because of that, I live my life on my own terms. I can put the spoon wherever I want to put the spoon. I can clean up or not clean up.
Mhm.
I can leave paper out, whatever. It doesn't matter. The only person that it affects is me. Um, so yeah, so to have grace for another, even to have grace for myself when I don't take care of something that I'm like, oh, it's been sitting for 3 days or whatever the situation is. I'm like, why do I do that to myself? I'm just like, talk about self. Yeah, that is self agitation. It's ridiculous. I'm like, stop that, Heidi. Just stop it. It's gonna, I mean, it's jamming up the system. It's blocking. It's doing a lot of things. I mean, I'm referring to my um to my kidney stone, which I mean, just the metaphor of the kidney stone, just kind of the blockage of it, right? Like I'm aware of the blockages that I'm putting up in my life. And so anyway, not that that's related, but I'm like, wow, yeah, how am I blocking myself? What am I doing
Yeah.
to myself, to my life, to my living situation where I'm blocking energy, good energy for myself by what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's totally related because I'm hearing like, where am I kinking the hose? Like
Yes. And the
on my
water's
own.
not flowing. It's not, yeah.
Right. And I remember listening to Gabor Mate. He had done the documentary, The Wisdom of Trauma. And he said one sentence in that whole, I mean, it was an amazing documentary, but he said, where are you depriving yourself of your own energy? And when I answered that question, I was like, ooh, a lot of that's me, right? And on the humor level, there's like a photo of Kermit the Frog, like looking into the mirror, and it's like when you find out the person ruining your day was you, right? And I just went, I can't really control what happens out there. The guy with the, you know, Mercedes who goes 3 lanes too sharp and like an inch away and heart palpitations and calm it down. And that's going to happen.
Yeah.
but I can control not getting spatially OCD about a spoon and catastrophizing about ants and, then thinking like 3 dominoes later after that, like, thing I don't want to have happen will happen, and just be like, "Chill." Like,
Right.
so it feels very much like well-being is an inside job there for me. And I mean, I'm just guessing for many, it's like, "Oh, if you could actually just stop the things you do that thwart you, you might be sitting on a lot of power,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
like
Hmm.
wattage." Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wattage and also vibrating at a higher,
Mhm,
yeah, at a much higher
mhm.
level.
Yeah,
Leveling up.
leveling up. And I asked my doctor today because he's so, uh, illumined. I don't know how to explain it, but,
Mhm.
like, he's like those beautiful old vintage Edison bulbs that are kind
Mhm.
of, like, glowy, and I asked him, I said, "How do you digest or handle, like, when you hear the worst things about the world?" Right? Because that's a place I can get sucked in,
Yeah.
like the atrocities and the unequal rights and the disparity and all of that.
Mhm.
And he said, when you get to a certain frequency, and I don't think he was being arrogant at all, but he was like, when you get to a certain frequency and vibration, you know that you can help, right? Like through your energy, through your prayers,
Mhm.
through other ways than getting completely bent out of shape about it and getting like kind of in the quicksand of it with it.
Mhm.
That you can stay over here and really just be of service. And I thought, I don't think that's always possible, like permission to be messy.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And what a cool approach. It doesn't feel detached, it still feels of service
Yeah.
without being like, now I'm as angry and upset and rage filled. Like, is that frequency going to help?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
What a
So
beautiful answer.
it, it's like light worker 101 a little bit
Yeah.
for me, coming from a reactionary activism, I'll call
Mhm.
it, to come into visionary activism, sacred activism,
Mhm.
and just learning like I am much more the John Lennon imagine. I would much rather be that than I tried the last 3.5 months, as you know, the rage and grief
Yeah.
filled activist. And I'm like, whew, that doesn't have to go underground, but I can't operate from that all the time.
Right.
I want to operate from fierce love because that feels right for me.
Yeah.
And I still love the people, yelling on the streets because we need that too. Mm. Wild, huh? Look at the time.
I can't even. I think we literally say that every week. I'm like,
And I
"Oh,"
mean it every
and
week.
we really mean it. I'm like, "It is 6:27. What? How's that possible?"
And it also still feels like midnight sometimes
And
to
it
me.
it does. It is like it's pitch. It's pitch dark. Yeah.
I think it was dark at like 4:53 yesterday because we were wrapping up our call, and I was like, I think I need to
Yes.
turn on the light.
I
So
know. Yeah. I don't like it.
I slowly enjoy the cocooning,
Yeah.
but I'm like a cat. So I have a heat pad right now and in blankets.
Yeah.
I feel like this might be my superpower,
What's that?
cozying up.
Oh, cozying up.
Like I'm really good at it.
I don't think I've ever heard another human say, "I'm really good at cozying up," but I love that.
Yes.
I love knowing that about you. I'm like, "Oh, that just sounds so." It reminds me of the response I when you it was one of the I think it was of the and question couple
Mhm.
weeks ago, and I remember my response was it because whenever I see you hold a mug, what was the question? Do you remember what I'm referring to? And it was like when you,
Oh, like, what do we feel like to each other or
yeah,
something?
and I said, and I think my response was something like along the lines of, for you, when I think about you, I think home and I think
Mhm.
warmth because when I see you holding this mug, I'm
I
like,
love
it's
this one.
always warm. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so I get the cozying. I really do. Yeah, I get it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's the yummies. Thank you for
Yeah,
seeing that. It's like I cherish the autumn and I cherish the cozy that
yeah.
comes with the winter. Yeah. Well, with that, we've got some and cards here shuffled away.
Let's do it.
And I'm going to let you holding 120 cards, like weird Uno. Okay. And then you can tell me, I'm going to use my index.
That
This one or this one?
middle fi go your ring finger is on it.
Ah, this one.
Yeah, that one. Yep.
Okay. Ooh, this will be juicy.
Okay.
What do you think I'm hesitant to talk to you about?
Okay. It's interesting because I've this is something that's I've been mulling around. So I don't know. I can't say I know specifically, but I I guess what I'm curious about is there anything that you've wanted to say to me?
Hmm.
Um that you're afraid to approach it or whatever. Um Because I have a strong personality. I mean, I know that I do, and, and I hate the term "you're a lot," but I've heard that, especially
Mm,
from men. Men are like, I've heard and I'm like and I wanna say, "Fuck you" to men because, yeah, I am, and I also want to be approachable. Like, I
right.
want to know that people can approach me if they have anything that they wanna say to me. So, I know that
Mm.
didn't really answer the question, but yeah.
Yeah, I think overall you were really approachable. I mean, when I met you, I was like, and I liked that you had a little bit of a filtering process and an edge. You weren't just like, "Hi, I'm your friend." There was like because that had me trusting you. And I've already shared this one with you, so I don't feel hesitant. But I think sometimes when we're on text specifically and like a time doesn't work, and then you're like, okay, forget it or whatever. And it's like, wait, hold on. Like the the invitation to collaborate versus like a unilateral decision,
Right.
right? And I also hold like you're probably well intentioned in whatever you're suggesting.
Mhm.
But that's probably the place where like sometimes I've been like, well, I can't do that, or I can only do that for half an hour, or how about this? And you're like, okay, like so let's just forget it. Or and then I'm just like, but I don't want to forget. Can we talk about this still? Does that land? Like,
Totally. And that kinda happened this week
uh
with the time, right? And
right. And how crunchy my schedule is and trying to find a
yeah,
reasonable amount of time.
yeah, because I don't like to be rushed. And even though we may not take an hour and 15 or an hour and 20 or an hour, whatever, I wanna be sure that there is enough time for you to share as much as you need to share, for me to share as much as I need to share, and then for insight or support or
Mhm.
whatever. Um, that's really important to me.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
doesn't, I think it's the place of like, once I asked some clarifying questions, I got that.
yeah.
But at first I was like, what do you mean? Like, you know, so yeah, that place where like I want to be included in the decision. And that's a big value for me.
Mhm.
That's a place I can get caught up to. Yeah.
I
So am
think
I supposed to answer it for you?
I think you just did,
Ah!
right? Yeah, if you want to.
Well, the question is, what do I think you might be hesitant?
Yeah, so
Tell
what
me.
do wait, did yeah, so you asked wait, who asked who?
I lost it in the shuffle.
No, but I've already asked you, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so then
Yeah, so I
you
think I would be saying what I think you might what I would consider you might be hesitant to talk to me about.
I don't think there's
Mm,
anything because I don't think there's anything because I trust myself enough to
mhm.
and I trust you enough to know that you have your own back. And if I did come at it sideways, you'd be able to call me on that and just say, "Hey, you
I'm
might address you."
confused.
Right, totally, right? Or you might address the issue and just say, "Hey, it would have been a little bit more helpful had you approached it this way."
Yeah. Or just sometimes if I say to you, "Hey, I'm confused because I really think I'm missing something and like you matter and it matters to me that I get it,
Yeah,
if it's for us."
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, because I honestly had a thought come up, and this might be from my own insecurities or like little baby shame spiral of like my not having the same alacrity as you towards like getting the podcast up and running or promoting it or right like my like oh I have 10 passions and sometimes I don't have the bandwidth to be like let's really
Mm,
think through the business side of
yeah.
cocktails and pajamas. So that would have been my guess, like the place is like hey like you don't show up, and I actually think you've named it before.
I have named it before, but also, a couple weeks ago when we were doing a check-in,
Hmm.
you had shared with me because I didn't realize how much was on your plate. Like I didn't realize how much you were holding. I had an idea, but I didn't really know.
Hmm.
And then when you shared with me that in the course of December, you're going to be letting go of a lot of things and you'll have more time to focus. I'm like, that's all I need to know.
Hmm.
You know, and I've shared with you before that I'm one of these people who like I get excited about something and I want to hit the ground running and just take it. Like take it to the 100-yard, like just run across the field and go. And I'm like, okay, that is just not how life works, Heidi.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm appreciating your ability to kind of to take care of the thing, like make yourself a priority, make the things in your life a priority,
Mhm.
which are, and I'm like, oh, okay, she's doing that. I need to sit back for a moment. This will give me a little more time to
Mhm.
reflect, to create other ideas and blah, blah, blah. And yeah. So
Right.
I'm appreciating, I feel like there's a real balance and a real coming together of the way that
Mhm.
we do things. Really. Yeah.
Yay. And I'm sensitive to that balance. And I think that's where I wanted you to know, like, hey, I'm not going to have like 12 plates spinning
Right.
forever. And I kind of did that to myself.
Yeah.
And I don't like, I end up having creative bandwidth sometimes because of that. Like oh, I've got to do homework before I go to sleep, or, oh,
Right.
this thing I've got to actually read the manual because class starts tomorrow. Or
Yeah.
you're like, oh, the manual's 59 pages or whatever.
Yeah.
And being like, I've actually begun to learn how to say no to things because of that.
Mhm,
Like, no, you're not signing up for the October songwriting circle for six
mhm.
months. And no, you can't take on another cohort to train while this cohort's in the last 6 weeks of graduating.
Yeah.
Because then the new kids are going to be in the first 6 weeks of starting. And both ends of the book take a little bit more hand holding.
Right.
So I'm learning to say no so that even though I'm multi passioned, I'm pacing my passions a little better. So, some of this is part of me not being boundaried in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then being like, but I'm in this thing for 12 months or 9 months or whatever.
Mhm.
So thank you for acknowledging just that piece of like, I felt sensitive to it, like, oh, she's on it. And I want to say your enthusiasm and joy and like nitro boosters on things is probably a part of what's kept this going
Mm,
while I didn't have the bandwidth to paddle as
mm,
hard with you. So I really see it as a gift because seeing you excited about this reminded me this was important.
mm.
Because it can all get lost when it's like, oh my God, I got 82 things to do.
It
And
can
being
be.
like, but this, like there's aliveness.
Yeah.
And I attribute that and I'm grateful to it being that party that's like, woo, I'm excited, let's do this. Like we need that.
Yeah.
And I also don't want you to be the only one doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm. It feels so good to be able to speak that openly.
100%. Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I feel the exhale of like, oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. I didn't have to posture.
Yeah. I don't ever want you to posture because I will
Mm.
vomit. I hate it.
I
It's
think you
probably one of
probably
my biggest.
have a pretty good radar for it too. So
Yeah, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Don't ever posture.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I just gotta say it feels so nourishing to not have to, right? Because if there's enough safety and trust,
Yeah.
that scared part doesn't have to come online.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend. This is
Mm,
really sweet. And thank you to all of you who are watching or may watch later. We hope, especially with the holidays coming up, that we can support you and having practical tools just to feel equipped going into those settings and being able to really care for yourself in them.
yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
Good night.
good night, everyone.